I'm Diana Chapman, and if you know me, you will know this is my favorite day of the year. I am
Oh,
notorious for throwing out Holy Fools tricks on social media. I've been doing about 20 years now. And what I like about this day is I like how it's inviting play. And I feel like one of the things that's really missing in the world is the spirit of play. And also the holy fool. I want to talk about the holy fool's willingness to go into the unknown and be willing to adventure, even if you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So I thought, first of all, let's define what is a holy fool, um, because I think that that's a good place to start. And then why do I think Gail and Chip are two of the coolest holy fools I know? So, Gail, you want to start us off with
yeah.
how
I
you
heard
define it?
about 12 years ago that Joseph Campbell said the holy fool was the most dangerous person on earth because she or he will not be controlled. They're going to do what they're here to do no matter what, and it is in service of life. And in years of working with transformational speaking and the privilege, I've worked with so many change artists. It's just, I wanted to start celebrating Holy Fools. And Diana, you were an early Holy Fool. We did an interview probably 10 years ago after you came to the class. And when this came up, it was like, Diana's the perfect Holy Fool to moderate this today. So thank you for showing up as you always do.
My great pleasure. Okay, so um, I remember hearing both of you speak at different times, and both of you spoke about making choices early in your life that were unconventional, uh, and that were, I might argue, the road less traveled. And so that was the holy fool right from the beginning. So I want to talk about, when do you remember the holy fool starting to lead you in your life?
Mm.
Do you want me to go first, or
Yeah, I
Go
would love
ahead,
to have you
Chip.
go first, Chip.
okay? Well, I want to quote Richard Rohr about the Holy Fool, and because Richard teaches at MEA and teaching in June again, and he says the fool is the one who sees differently, who refuses to play the usual game, and so becomes the bearer of new wisdom. And
Mm.
so, um, when I was a teenager, when I was a kid, before teenager, I had imaginary friends, and one of the friends was the funny friend. I used to tell my mom about the funny friend who would tell me jokes. And of course, the jokes were like nasty jokes, but because my friend told them to me, I would say them to my mom and she would say like, "Oh, don't talk like that." And I said, "Well, it wasn't my joke. It was the funny friend joke. It was funny, the funny fool joke. It was this funny friend fool." And so it was my way of discarding myself as the holy fool, my way of blaming it on someone else. And my mom's very proper, so she had a hard time with that. But I will tell you that my sense of humor is still the sense of humor of a 12-year-old boy. So anybody who's been in a MEA, a Modern Elder Academy workshop with me knows that I am, people try to rein me in a little bit sometimes, but I just like to make funny jokes. I think that, and so I don't think the Holy Fool is just about joking, but I think the Holy Fool is about learning how to alchemize both gravitas, depth, and levity, laughter and lightness. And so for me, in my teen years, I really lost that. I was actually, I became very extroverted because my parents told me they were going to send me to therapy if I didn't actually get more social. And I thought therapy sounded like jail. And so I didn't really know what that was, but I didn't want anything to do with it. But the thing that I think I always did, I went to high school in the inner city, Long Beach Poly High School, Snoop Dogg's high school. And he was 10 years behind me, but I, uh, I learned that across the cultures, because it was 35% white, 35% black, 15% Latino, and 15% Asian at that time. Um, being the one who has a sense of humor across the cultural divides was my way of building relationships and feeling seen at a time when I was scared to be seen because I was in many ways very frightened of um, my what I felt was, a lack of masculinity. I mean, I was a great athlete, but I was in the shadow of my dad, who was a Marine captain.
Mm.
So it was my foolishness that gave me the ability to actually make friends. And especially with Black women, Black girls, I could sass it up with them. And ultimately I came out at 22 as a gay man. But at 16 or 17 in the courtyard of our high school, where we were dancing to Love Roller Coaster, Ohio Players, and Rick James and all this stuff, I could just dance and sass it up and not worry that anybody was going to think that I was a sissy because I was hanging out with my Black sisters. And with them, I could be totally irreverent in my jokes. So, okay, that's my story.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fun. That's a new story for me. How
Yeah.
about you, Gail? When do you remember your fool starting to take lead?
I think I was more a rebel. The holy came later. When I hear about Chip's teenage years, oh my gosh, I mean, I graduated from high school with Billy Graham's daughter, so that probably tells you a whole lot. We didn't dance.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't go to movies. We didn't play cards. So for me, it was like not, you know, you take on certain things as a kid to survive in the family that aren't necessarily who we are. And so for me, the rebel was, this isn't my life. So it took a lot of pushing against to finally find my path, but I always kind of looked at the world differently. They tell me now that even when I was a kid, I would put on events in the neighborhood. I would have dog shows where my dogs would always win. I would have a circus where I'd be a performer. I mean, I always loved bringing people together around something that was fun.
Mm.
And it's fun now. I mean, I know a lot of you on the call don't know what Modern Elder Academy is, so that's why I wanted you to meet Chip. And it's where I'm doing all my programs now. And there's a new program we're launching this month called the Transformational Listening Playground. And it's really playing with the guidance we get that helps us lead a life on track. And I don't think we ever really know if we're on track, but we follow a call as a holy fool. And I think I came out of that fundamentalist background thinking if I learned to play my cards right, I wouldn't go to hell. And so anytime something failed, it was like I blew it. And now I realize failure is part of the stacked get against all humans. So if we're going to be fools anyway, why not be holy fools in service of something that matters?
I love this. And what I get you have in common, both of you, is this commitment to a state of play. And a state of play is really about being in an open, curious place of learning that is not attached to what the outcome has to be. And therefore, you're willing to be available to listen and to follow maybe some guidance that's unconventional. You have to have a lot of courage to be willing to do that. And so I'm curious for both of you, how has this unconventional courageousness guided you in your lives? And can you give us an example of where you had a choice to make and you chose the road less traveled or the more unconventional way? And how did that go for you?
Gail, you go first this time.
So much of what you've heard me say, I've led an amazing life. I just wish I'd known it while it was going on. I mean, I show up and ideas strike me. And I think the fact that I was never trained to be anything but someone's wife and mother, which I didn't do well. I never had children, but as a wife, I was not exactly some exhibit A of how my family thought it should look. but I would have ideas that I wanted to bring to life, and I had so much support. I had people encouraging me when I didn't know I could do things. So, for example, I was employment manager at Vanderbilt University and Medical Center. My job was to keep 5,000 jobs filled. When I left there, a businessman in the community took me aside and said, "You should be in your own business. All the offers you're getting now are counting on you." And I said, "Well, what would I do?" And he said, "I don't care what you do, but I'm going to give you $15,000." And in 1976, that was a lot of money. And he said, you do what you want to do with it. If you make it, you owe me double. If you lose it, it's my loss." So my lawyer, who was my divorce lawyer, said people would line up for that. So I started a business, and honestly, Diana, I just thought I'd last 3 months. I had enough money for 3 months. But it was other people believing in me when I didn't see what I was capable of that opened doors that I walked through. And it wasn't courageous so much as, why not? If it's not, if where you are isn't making your heart sing, and something is saying, come on, let's play, let's try this, why not?
Right. And this lets us know what a holy fool you are, Gail, because the holy fool says, why not? Which is a profoundly courageous thing to be an experience. And many people wish they had more of the courage to do why not. And it's a
And
big
many
part of,
people spend so much time training for something that they think is their path.
yes,
I think it's harder for them than it was for me to say that
yeah,
because there's more at risk. But I think part of the generosity of my path has been, I can easily say, why not? Because there wasn't that much investment in something else.
yeah. I think that's one of the things I love about MEA is how it's inviting people to come and find out what's your why not that's really aligned with you
Yeah.
and having the courage to go take that leap like a fool leaps off the cliff. How about for you, Chip? Where was that moment for you where you could
I would say the first time, well, first coming out at 22 as a gay man to my Marine captain father, that was a lot. He's still living, he's 88, and he credits it as at the time I went into conversion therapy, which is Supreme Court just whatever. We're not going to get into politics, but long story short is I was set up by my therapist to have sex every 2 weeks with a woman 15 years older than me who said, "I'm going to fuck your brains out and I'm going to make you love it."
oh no.
Okay, that's a holy fool. Um, but it was 2 or 3 years after that, after the reparative therapy that didn't work, that I decided to start this boutique hotel company called Joie de Vivre. And I called it Joie de Vivre, meaning joy of life in French, because it was my daily reminder of what the mission of the company was, to create joy. But the reason I did that, and I had gone to Stanford undergrad and then Stanford Business School, and everybody else was working for McKinsey or Morgan Stanley or all these big time companies, and I went to take a job out of business school that paid me almost nothing, but really taught me to be an entrepreneur as a commercial real estate developer. But I decided that was still not creative enough for me, so I wanted to be one of the first boutique hoteliers in the U.S. And the reason I did that, even though there was a huge chance it was going to fail, I don't have a lot of money, but my family was middle class, and so I raised a little bit of money and bought a broken down motel that was in foreclosure that had rooms by the hour. That was how I got in the hotel business. It ultimately became known as the Phoenix, the Rock and Roll Hotel of San Francisco. But I learned one thing in college, and in the one psychology class I took with Phil Zimbardo, the famous Stanford prison experiment professor. What I learned from him was the following. Social science has shown that the thing that you didn't do, but wish you had is twice as painful as the thing that you did and you wish you hadn't done. So in essence, the psychology shows or social science research shows that not doing the thing is much worse than doing the thing and wishing you hadn't done the thing.
Yeah.
So that gave me a lot of, and that's been a voice in my head ever since, in my three major chapters of my career, all of which had a huge amount of jumping like a fool into the abyss, and just wondering, am I crazy? So, and usually people do say I'm crazy. And and then they say after the fact, oh, of course that was going to work. Of course that Airbnb thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't found Airbnb, but I was the modern elder of Airbnb for 7.5 years to the founders when it was a tiny startup. But and Modern Elder Academy as well. And certainly the boutique hotel business, which at the time I started, nobody really knew what that was. So but it's the hard thing is I also am outcome driven, and that's where my holy fool, sometimes has a hard time, because if I'm too focused on the outcome, what I miss in that process is the noble experimentation. Failures are just noble experiments.
Yes.
But if your outcome is too attached to an expectation, I mean, or your expectations, you have an expectation of an outcome, it's harder to be the noble experimenter. And so I do my best to try to stay in that noble experimentation mode, try things, and have fun along the way too. I mean, you don't call your name an emotion of joy. Um, your company name that if you don't have a point of view that this better be fun.
Yeah. Okay,
That
so
makes me
noble.
want to know from Chip though, what's the most fun for you? What
Today,
do yeah, it just in general, what's the thing that brings you the most joy now?
well, the thing that brings me the most joy is something that I've always been interested in, and then I tabled it because sometimes we have to look back at childhood or earlier in our life. And I was always interested in film. And at 24, I wrote a screenplay. I thought maybe that business school thing I did was a stupid thing, and maybe I should go be a screenwriter. And I wrote a screenplay, but I started the boutique hotel company after that, so I never did anything with it. So I've been fascinated by film, and I decided to create an MEA film festival every December that is on the themes of MEA, which is, transition, midlife transitions, purpose, wisdom, intergenerational collaboration, reframing our relationship with aging and longevity, spirituality. And so I love this. Yesterday I was talking to a filmmaker who made a movie, a friend of Dorothy, and it was Oscar nominated just this last month, for one of the 5 best short films of the year. It didn't win. It was actually potentially going to win. But the filmmaker's so great. I just love him. And he's based in the UK. And I had this call with him yesterday, and I was like, I just felt such a sense of kinship. And I could tell he was just so appreciative. Our film festival is not big, but it's actually, he'd heard of it. And it's like, yeah, that's the filmmakers film festival where all the filmmakers go and have fun together. And it's like, yeah, that we go do hot tubs together. This is not a film festival where you just like go and watch the film and then have a Q&A and everybody's bored and everybody goes back out. It's like, no, we do that and then let's go in the steam room. Let's go like to the yoga class. Let's go for a hike. Let's go have lunch, or let's go have dinner and have drinks, and all of that within the MEA campus in Santa Fe. So that's something I just feel, I feel so lucky that I can take my career calling, helping with Derek to run MEA, while at the same time bringing in some of my curiosities and passions.
Okay, so that's another example of experimentation, right? And that's one of the classic qualities of a holy fool is the willingness to experiment. So, what happens when you get people naysayers, either outside of you or even those inside of your head that go like, "Wait a minute, what are you doing? Why would you want to do that?" How do you deal with that naysayer fear that comes when you're on the brink of these, experiments or following these paths that are less traveled.
For me, it's like I got to get a sense of humor because I know, I've had enough life now to know that things always don't work out. You know, Diana, and I will announce it here for those who don't. When I was going through menopause, I went through hell. And finally, I developed a character called Madame Ovary and started performing midlife humor. And it helped me get a sense of humor about stuff that was taking me to my knees. And one of the things Madame Ovary often said that is now my philosophy is if you lay an egg, step back and admire it. So it's all not going to work. But that inner voice in me, it's terribly inconvenient because it can always say, what if this doesn't work?
Yeah.
But what if it does? I'm at the point in my life where I think I'm more willing to experiment.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm also more willing to let go when it doesn't work. I'm not going to hang on because I put all this money in it or I've done so much. One of the things Chip probably doesn't know is what brought me to Santa Fe in 1999 was I was the founding partner of a venture called Journeywell Center for Integrative Health. It is what MEA is doing now with the Longevity Center. I was
Wow.
always off and running. We raised money, we developed our program, and it was an idea before its time. And I think one of the great things about aging and being a little slower is now maybe I'll be right on time with what I want to do instead of 25 years early. But how great that MEA is doing it now to find that path to your health that's uniquely yours, just like I do that with speaking.
Yeah.
What's my way? What works for me? What is aligned with my makeup so that I can be in the world in an authentic, healthy way? So it's been really interesting to watch how MEA has. I came here for something that was a really heartbreaking loss for me. And I
Mm.
had to step away because at the time we realized we were meeting at Soleil Sombre, Chip, that
Oh,
beautiful
yeah.
property.
Oh
We
my
had
God,
a
it is such a beautiful
partnership with
property.
them. We'd
Yeah.
started the programs there. They decided to sell it. It knocked out our second round capital formation.
Mm.
And at that time, my dad was killed in an automobile accident.
Gail.
And I was like,
Mm.
I can't do this. And it was really hard. But the truth is, the investors had been so engaged that for the most part, they said, this has been an incredibly creative partnership. And, it was hard to let it go. And then as I felt better, I started seeing if I could find ways to bring it to life, but other things came in. So yeah, it was a very painful,
So you were,
difficult time that terrified me. And life kept happening and opening up, but it takes time. Sometimes, they say there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes it's a really long tunnel. And I think it's the holy fool way to just, sometimes we're comatose, sometimes we're excited, but we keep going around that thread. There's a William Stafford poem. He says there's a
a
thread you
thread.
follow. It goes among.
Uh-oh.
Whoops.
Well, she was just following the thread. Like, what the heck? It's
Well, until she comes back, Chip, I want to know from you, because
yeah.
you've changed things. You've taken big leaps in all different kinds of ways. How do you deal with the like, are you sure? What if this
It's
doesn't
hard.
work?
It is hard. You know, because I'm a pretty intuitive person. That's sort of what drives me. So, I don't do a ton of market research. I'm pretty iterative, but I'm also very sensitive to to being a people pleaser and to listening to other people. And then there's that, Stanford MBA in me that has the analytical side. Um, so I lead with the intuitive, sort of foolish, crazy person, but I iterate based upon data, information, etc. along the way.
Uh-huh.
So for the person who's a naysayer, what I'll try to do is to say like, well, I'm going to try this, and then let's see what happens. And then, when we started the MEA, so the reason Modern Elder Academy exists is because in my mid 50s, well, actually, in my late 40s, I lost 5 male friends to suicide, and all of them 42 to 52. And then in my 50s, and I had a really difficult time myself in my late 40s. And then in my 50s, I flourished. I loved it. But what I also saw was a lot of my friends feeling irrelevant and invisible. And so MEA became a thing as I was writing a book called Wisdom at Work, The Making of a Modern Elder, because that's what they called me at Airbnb. Um, I decided, I had a home on the beach in Baja, and I said, well, let's, was it Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, like, let's throw a circus or whatever it is. I was like, let's create a beta test of this idea of a midlife wisdom school, of which there was not anything like that in the world, a midlife wisdom school. And so, how do you help people to come and make sense of their wisdom in often their 40s, 50s, and 60s? Although we've had people as young as 24 and as old as 94. And so we did beta tests. So it was like crazy idea. No one's done it. Let's do it. Let's build a tiny little campus, but make it small enough so if this doesn't go well, that I can make it go away, I guess. But so we did 13 beta workshops, and by the end of the 13, after 6 months, every other week, I'd done enough to be able to say, for those naysayers out there, I have enough information for me to feel like not only is this a good idea, but I love doing this. That's the more important question is, do you love doing it? The ikigai, Japanese purpose,
Right.
raison d'etre kind of idea says, ideally you find yourself in the middle ground zero of a Venn diagram between what you love doing, what you do well, what you get rewarded for. Sometimes people say what you get paid for, but I don't think it has to necessarily have financial, there's could be other benefits, what you get rewarded for, and then what the world needs. But it starts with, what do you love doing?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to start with that, but in my opinion, that's what it has to start with.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, hopefully you do, and then everything else. But actually, frankly, sometimes it starts with, does the world need this too?
Right. Right.
If it's a business, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, good. So what I hear is there is this intelligence that says, okay, let's take a leap. And before we do, let's think about, does the world need this, as it is one of the things I most love? And then let's to get strategic so we can iterate here to see, is this really going to work?
Yeah.
And it is in that curious place of iteration that you get to decide whether you stay or go. And I'm curious if there's ever been a time where you just said, oh, let this go pretty quickly, or was
Yeah,
there
I
an
mean, I
example?
certainly have not done with the MEA. A lot of people, with MEA, we faced COVID, with our Baja campus and shutting down for an extended period of time. We faced my cancer, which literally found out about my cancer during the beta era 8 years ago. And then it's just gone from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. I had to, completely redo the leadership team, and Derek came and joined us a couple of years ago. And the two co-founders, were no longer going to be on the leadership team. I mean, a lot of people would have actually quit along the way, and we never made a dime as a business. It's a for-profit that's really a nonprofit, because it's very aligned with trying to make sure that we have all kinds of people with, no matter what they make, coming and joining us. So there's a lot of people who would have said no at that point. But again, it comes back to, you really love it, and if you deeply, deeply believe that people are being transformed by it and that the world needs it, you persevere. On the other hand, two examples of things where I didn't persevere. One was, there's a word called glamping. Glamping is like sort of cushy camping. that term was actually created in 2005. But in 1998, I created a glamping resort. It was not called a glamping resort. Um, but so it was way before the term, and it was ahead of its time. It was called Costa Noa. It's on the coast of between Santa Fe, or no, Santa Fe, Santa Cruz and Half Moon Bay. And it was just ahead of its time. I mean, it did well during the dot-com boom, and then the dot-com bust. Our weekdays were dead because there was no dot-com companies to come and go mountain biking and enjoy the place we built. And yeah. And then years and years later, I was always fascinated by festivals. I was the first board member of Burning Man. Who knew Burning Man had a board of directors anyways, but I was the first one. And I was curious about the idea that more digital we get, the more ritual we need. And so I decided to create a website and then a company called Fest 300 that was dedicated to chronicling an annual list of the 300 best festivals in the world of all kinds, including religious pilgrimages, etc. And so for 3 years, I did that, and it never made any money at all, but I loved it. And I almost, when Airbnb came and the founders asked me to join them, 13, 14 years ago, when I had barely even heard of the company, and I was a hospitality guy, I ended up saying yes to them, thank God, because I did really well financially on that. But it was part of the reason I was going to say no, but was because I have this Fest 300 thing I'm going to do, and that I'm doing, that ultimately went away. And it went away partly because I had to pour all my energy into Airbnb. But um, but the truth is, yeah, I would have probably let that go too, because at some point I would have probably made an annual list, but I wouldn't have had a company trying to make money to do it. I would have just said like, okay, whatever. I'm like, the most interesting guy in the world, and people invite me to their festivals because they want to be on the Fest 300 list. That's a pretty good gig for the
It's a great
latter
gig.
half of my life. But yeah, instead, a lot of other things happened.
Gail, how about you? Where was there ever a time where your holy fool took a leap and it became clear you needed to exit?
Oh, lots of times. Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting for me to look back on, and everything that failed was part of what I need now.
Hmm.
Mm.
Part of my life wisdom, part of what I'm able to bring to others. Um, sorry, I lost there. I hope someone finished that quote for
No,
there is a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. It's hard to explain about the thread. People don't get it. But if you hold the thread, you won't get lost. So there's
mm,
this thread through our lives that is so individual, yet it's trying to be co opted by the culture all the time. So when we can, I think it takes some life experience and going back, but that thread is what is going to enliven us. I have the misfortune of being a Capricorn, and I've always said my war cry is there's a harder way to do this, and I'm going to find it if it kills me. So, and it has brought me to my knees repeatedly. And when we closed Journeywell, I was broke. I'd put everything I had into it. It was the Madame Ovary moment, trying to get a sense of humor through menopause. And I had been in the speaking world for so long. I head of the National Speakers Association, a consultant to speakers, a literary agent, so many things in the speaking world that I said, well, I'll just do this till my next big thing comes along. And guess what? It was my big thing. It was what I'm here to do. It's
mm,
the gift I hold. And I always thought it had to be big. I mean, maybe the difference between Chip and me is he's had a bigger budget to play with. But the truth is, I love
yeah.
working intimately with people. My speaking classes are 6, the listening is 12. When I walk into a big room, I am overwhelmed now at this stage of my life. I'm 81. So I get overwhelmed energetically with too much energy going on.
Mm,
But I love being in close connection with small groups of people doing work that matters. And the work that matters is finding their path and their voice. So it just become, the failures have all allowed me to be with what's in front of me. Because all of us go through this, but we don't want to admit it. We want to look good. The holy fool gets over trying to look good because there's a lot of times we don't.
Yeah. I want to add something there, if I could. So MEA being a wisdom school is dedicated to helping people to understand how do you cultivate your wisdom. And, we're taught throughout our life how to accumulate knowledge, but we're taught very little about how do you cultivate your wisdom. And that one of the things I've learned about wisdom is that our painful life lessons are the raw material for our future wisdom. And so what Gail just said is exactly right. You know, the wisest people I know are often the ones who are the most wounded. They're like the wounded healer is the shaman, and there's an element of learning your lessons, but you got to learn the lessons. Just because you're 70 doesn't mean you're wiser than a 30-year-old, because if you haven't metabolized your life experience and made sense of it and learned along the way, you just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So I think in the era of AI, artificial intelligence, human wisdom is so essential. And that's one of the reasons I'm really proud of the fact that we created a wisdom school, because I do believe that wisdom schools are going to be a long-term trend, because I think we're going to live in an era where people are trying to make sense of what they're learning along the way. And that will be more important than in the past, because in the past it was all about this little device telling me everything. Well,
Yeah.
now that AI is going to tell you all the knowledge in the world, you better get clear on your human qualities of who you are. But having said that, we're the first and we're the only wisdom school in the world. So I don't know. I think we're still real. I think, like you, Gail, I think I'm really, really early on in this
The
thing.
guy
So,
with the arrow at his back.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I want
Yeah.
to see if you asked Gail, you asked Chip, what's bringing his joy right now, which maybe like what's guiding your fool right now, your holy fool. And I heard you say that you're really excited about working with films and creating this film festival for MEA.
Yeah.
And just wondering, Chip, is there any other way your fool is guiding you these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fool is taking me back to my childhood about the imaginary friends. Not that I don't, I don't have imaginary friends right now, but I do have a deep need to be introverted. And it's hard, when I teach as much as I do, and I'm here in this god awful banal, hotel conference hotel room, because in half an hour or 45 minutes I go on stage to give a speech to 1,000 people. So um, yeah, that's not an introvert. But the introvert is rising up, like the phoenix
Mhm.
rising from the ashes. And so my holy fool is sort of starting to like play a little bit with the introversion, and starting to write and starting to feel like there's a couple people know about this, next February. And the reason it's not till next February is because my fucking schedule's really busy and I can't do it before then. But next February, I'm taking the whole month off. And as a guy with stage 3 cancer who might not live 30 more years, who knows how many years I'm going to live. The cancer's growing right now, so I'm going back into treatment. Um, I'm doing something called The Month I Died. And basically getting rid of phone, getting rid of my laptop. I'll get a burner phone, so I have an emergency phone with me, and I'll have an iPad so I can do some writing. And I'm basically dropping off the face of the earth for a month. And I'm doing social eulogies, 2 or 3, with small groups of close friends, where we're going to do eulogies for each other at a dinner. The kind of thing that we would say to each other if we were at each other's funeral. Why do we wait to the funeral to do that? And then I go, and people say to me like, because I just started writing and talking about it, and it's a bit of a holy fool idea. And they say, well, where are you going to do this? And I was like, do you not understand what I'm saying? I'm going to wake up the first morning and I'm just saying, like, I have a month. I don't even know who I am and what I'm doing. And I'm actually not going to call myself Chip. When I meet people on the road, I'm going to call myself Steven because that's my original name. I'm a chip off the old block. And I'm just going to take on a whole different identity. And the world will not know that I'm around. And how does that feel? And what's it going to be like? And what am I going to write about? And, I don't know where I'm going to be because I'm going to wake up in the morning. And if I say I want to be in Tierra del Fuego, I'm going to start riding a bike to Tierra del Fuego and like, who knows? But yeah, so there's a holy fool in that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think? That is just, can you all feel it? Like my
Oh,
body
wait,
is
Diana,
ticking.
Diana, you're the one. You're the one. You are the one. Yes, my
I heard
intuition.
it. I
I-
heard it on your conversation. That's when you decided this.
That's when I came up with this, was when Diana and I are on my podcast. My podcast is called The Midlife Chrysalis. And she was talking about this year, and she was just sort of like talking about, how it was so odd to just sort of like just be. And so the idea I just told you, I sort of started to birth it on that podcast where I was interviewing her. Yeah, that's so weird that just came around. Thank you, Diana,
Yeah.
for not interrupting me and saying, Chip, we already know this shit.
No, no, it's so exciting. And I want to say, I think resting and taking pauses is a great act of rebellion
Mm,
to the culture that is drive, drive, drive. And just to I feel the aliveness. Can you feel the aliveness of being around that holy fool talking about this adventure he's going to take? It just,
mm.
I get so inspired by that level of freedom to just wander, let it take you. And so I'm so grateful for your surrender with that
Yeah.
project. How about for you, Gail? What's the holy fool? How is it really guiding you right now?
I was thinking about this today. I had a secretary when I was at Vanderbilt who would always say to me, Bosso, do not ride off before untying your horse. And so earlier in life, I'd get an idea and I was off, and I'd really get in a lot of trouble sometimes. Now I think the beauty of being an elder is I don't have the energy to move quite so quickly, so I might be on time now. But the other part is more playing, less proving. I feel like, I actually, when I was developing transformational listening, I was thinking of it as an experiment. What might we discover? And through automatic writing, I got this message: forget experiment, it's a playground. Because when we enter it as a playground, we're curious and we can see what's available to us. That if we think we need to know where we've got to go. So I feel that way about my life now. Um, I feel like I don't know if it's more in place or less in place. I feel more flexible to go with, Rumi said, move from within. Don't move the way fear wants you to. Begin a foolish project. Noah did. Chip did. Our foolish projects. I want enough space in my life to move with what's true, what's enlivening, what's fun. I don't want to do the heavy lifting anymore because there's enough of it unplanned without planning projects where I know it's going to be part of the job description.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. I'm curious if there's questions from anybody here that are things that you're wondering about that you want to learn about from Chip or Gail about bringing your holy fool forward, or any other questions you might have.
Oh, come on. Be foolish. Ask,
Ask a foolish question.
while we're waiting, I'm going to put the MEA website in the chat just so if people want to understand how to be wise and foolish at the same time. There are two sides of the
Yeah,
same
Thank you. Yeah,
coin.
thanks for that.
yeah, I really want to.
Linda wants to know how to evade those who stop you.
You evade them.
Yes. I was going to say the same
Hopefully
thing.
you're not living with them.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
yeah, I think we both have answers. Yeah. I just don't expect people to understand so much anymore. When I know it's right, that's the thread. And it's like it's undeniable. There's things we can't not, we can't say no when we understand that's our calling. But I'm not in a family, I'm single and I love it. And I have a community that's supportive, but I think probably that has meant over time, say, if it isn't aligned, it's not where I want to put my energy. If it's a family member that you need to evade, it's a much more complicated negotiation.
Yeah. I'm just eating some dark chocolate to get my energy. Here's the thing. Often the people closest to you have a lot invested in you not changing.
Mm.
And there's lots of reasons for that. Systems theory. If you change, then I have to change. Or they've gotten very comfortable in the truths you have of you being you and them being them, and they don't want you to be anything but the you that you have been. Isn't it interesting? We make our to-do lists and they're always outdated because I made it yesterday. What about today? And how about the to-be list? If I have a to-be list, my to-be list is going to constantly be changing. But if I am in life with, whether it's a partner, romantically, a business partner, family member, children, parents, whatever, often they want us to just be predictable. I remember when I said to my parents, so I was like, am I gay? Am I straight? It's like, and I said, Mom, I think maybe I'm bisexual. And she says, you can be anything but that. You can't be bisexual because then I don't know. I have to know. It's got to be one or the other. And my dad was, of course, it had to be straight, but like, so you can't be unpredictable because if you're unpredictable, then I don't know. And people are frightened by uncertainty and they're frightened by change. And so, you know, surround yourself with people who are also open. I mean, this is one of the beauties of MEA is you come to a workshop and you're surrounded by 20 or 25 people or however many there are who are all also in the midst of awkward change. And that is so valuable because that's a group of people who moving forward are going to be enlightened witnesses for your change. And you're going to be reciprocating.
I have a question for you both, which is, do you have any suggestions for rituals or practices that people could do to help start to liberate their holy fool and the ideas it might have or the journeys it might want to take?
Mm. Well, I don't know if I have a ritual. What I have is that you have to be a first class noticer, a keen observer of yourself. And when I looked at age 22 coming out, and the first four boyfriends I had were all artists. Okay, Chip, like, what is it that you're seeking here by having these relationships with artists?
Now I have to remember what I'm getting. May I
What's
have an
that?
iced cafe latte, the smaller size, please?
Yes, you holy
With
fool, you can
half
have that,
a
but you can shut
pump
up
of
too.
vanilla. Thank you. Yeah, that came out
Catherine,
so good.
so good. Yes, so good. And now just zip it. So yeah, so who you surround yourself with is really important. And surrounding yourself with people who are in evolution and are maybe the opposite of you a little bit. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
Oh, I love that advice. So first, surround yourself with other people who are being more in their holy fool so that you get inspired, and surround yourself with people for whom are doing things different than you or interested in different things that might ignite different parts of you to come forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. How about for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I would, I think it's so easy to shut ourselves down when we have something that brings us alive. I can't do that. To just begin to follow it, take one step toward it. A few years ago, I was feeling so done with the way things were for a number of reasons. And my teacher for many years and my friend, Angela Arian, used to say, don't push, don't hold back. And I really took that as a mantra for my life. I was not going to initiate anything, but if something came to my door, I was going to pay attention. And it really opened, I got out of tunnel vision about what I thought things should be. And it opened the field to look for a lot more that was coming to me that I think I otherwise would have missed. And actually, that's why Chip and I are together now. I announced my final transformational speaking immersion. And I laughingly, my Beth, my assistant who's on the line, put this little graphic of a woman in a short skirt kicking a bucket. And I said, if this is on your bucket list, no, I am likely closer to the bucket than you are. And I had so many clients that I emailed Chip and I said, maybe it's time to talk again because a model for 25 people doesn't work with the intimate work I do. But everything unfolded from there. And Derek, who's on the call, and Chip arranged a way for me to be an MEA with my groups of 6.
Yeah.
And it was like, that wasn't planned.
No.
Sometimes our plans get in our way. So
Yeah.
I would say relax the planning, invite life, and recognize, every one of us we're a holy fool mess. I mean, life is difficult, it's challenging. We don't know how things are going to turn out. But how about just one step towards something you think you'd like to explore? And, if it ends badly, you'll have a really good story to tell at transformational speaking.
Yep.
I do want to say I attended transformational speaking, I don't even know how many years ago now, 10 years, something like that. It was one of the best gifts I ever gave myself. I hands down would tell anybody and everybody, whether you think you're going to be a speaker or not, you need to go to this class. It
Yeah.
is a way to help access just the medicine that wants to come through you, however that wants to come. And so, and it's really great to just to learn how to let this voice express itself. Lillian, I see you have a question. I'd love to hear from you.
Yes, I just first of all I want to thank you all for hosting this, and thank you, Gail, for being at Trader
We
Joe's.
ran into each other at Trader Joe's the other day.
Thank you for being at Trader Joe's when I needed to pick up some salty olive nuts, and it's a full circle moment. Penny Pierce, I see Penny.
Is Penny here?
Her intuitive way really initiated back in the late '90s. So to see her here just as like full circle, and so this, yeah, I
I
think
gotta
you, Gail,
see
you were
this here.
Yeah, it's like, you were alluding this whole thing of like you just don't know. And there's just how to turn it into a question because there's so much going on in the world right now. Right. And on the sense of again, I'm in Santa Fe because something at the kind of personal but to be of service level brought me here. And so this thing of the fool, I'm reminded of the movie Being There. Right, where again, they just the role
Chauncey
of
Gardner. Chauncey
Yeah.
Gardner.
yes, and it's like how can we integrate at the individual level, being in touch with our intuition, being of service, but not taking ourselves too seriously. And I feel like you have invited us here to really be in in the creation of something that can be of service at all levels. And so if there's a question in there that you can pull out and speak to us and send us all off, because I know we don't have much more time, to send us off with a real sense of like, yeah, take a leap, just a bit, but from this intuitive place, get out of the head and the ego, and please, if you can speak to that, because goodness knows, the wisdom that you were referring to, Chip, it is so needed right now. There's so many things going on. So yeah.
Gail, you go first. I have a very short thing to say, but you feel free to go first.
Yeah, I think we're all grappling with really big questions, not just personally, but collectively. It's what we address in transformational listening of what we care about and what we're receiving together. And what I really got from our beta test of that is when we are looking and don't know what to do, it's who are we to be? It's what Chip is saying. How are we growing into what it is we want in the world? How do we reflect that through our own presence so that we can manifest it and that it becomes visible? And we're in a complex time. We can't figure it out, but we can listen for that next step that can guide us into something. I think our answers right now are in the unseen more than the seen, and that gives me great hope.
Yeah, and I would, on a personal level, Liliana, I would just say my favorite MEA question is 10 years from now, what will you regret if you don't learn it or do it now? And when I moved down, and this is less related to the social, the way the world is right now in terms of society and all the chaos, but more on a personal level. When I moved to Baja 9 or 10 years ago, I had a mindset, which was I was at 56 years old at that time. I was too old to learn to surf or learn Spanish. But then someone said to me, well, do you think you might live here 10 years from now? And I said, yeah, I hope so. I love it here. And they said, well, what will you regret 10 years from now if you didn't learn it or do it now? And it's like, okay, I guess I'll regret not learning Spanish. Won't be easier at 66 than 56, nor will it be easier to learn to surf. And so what we need in life often are catalysts, and you know, anticipated regret is a form of wisdom. At 20 years old, you don't have anticipated regret because, for the most part, you have a full runway ahead of you of what you can do. But as you get older, that anticipated regret can be greater because you do start to the window of opportunity does close for certain things. And so
surfing, for example.
Well, we had a 77-year-old learn how to surf. It was crazy. Or no, not 77, 87. Hey, Jim Flaherty was 87 when he learned to surf. But and liability waivers signed. Let me be clear on that one. So yeah, no, I think recognizing what you might regret, whether that's a societal action you can influence or a personal, mission of what you want to do. I have to go because I have to go literally go on stage and give a speech.
Thank you so much for Holy Fools for being here with all of us. Thank you, Chip. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, Diana.
You're so welcome. I hope that all of you feel inspired for your fools to come out more and listen to your heart and the aliveness that runs through you.